back to a brand new episode of Gen Z BTC. It's me, Satoshi Guapamoto, and today we're going to be going a little bit in depth on the math of Bitcoin. Essentially, what is Bitcoin doing? We always hear, oh, it's solving a complex math problem. It's doing math. What does that really mean? We're not going to go super in depth, but I'll give you an overview of what this means. What algorithm is Bitcoin using in order to mine? How is it even a cryptocurrency? What cryptographic elements does it have? The difficulty adjustment and why that's important, right? Some people might say this is the most important thing about Bitcoin. What is a nonce? Okay, not a pedophile. What is a nonce, right? Number only used once. And how all this math relates to Bitcoin. Let's get into it. So the math problem that Bitcoin is trying to solve, it's not necessarily doing a math problem. Like it's not doing multiplication or algebraic functions or anything like that. What they're really trying to do is they are trying to guess a certain string of inputs. They're trying to guess a scramble of letters and numbers. More or less. I'm not going to be able to do the SHA-256 hashing algorithm justice in this video. You should definitely go watch some content from great creators like Michael Saylor, some that are by Bitcoin University, Matthew Crowder at Bitcoin University, absolute GOAT of the sport of Bitcoin, okay? Bitcoin is a sport. This is a sport. That man is a gold medalist. But essentially, what you're trying to do with a Bitcoin miner, okay, look up Bitcoin mining, look up Bitcoin mining operations. What do these buildings look like? What does a miner look like? It looks like a computer desktop, you know? What are these computers doing all day? They're not adding numbers together necessarily. They're looking for a string of numbers and letters that will produce a certain output. They're looking for an input that outputs a very specific set of numbers. They're looking for a number with a lot of leading zeros like this. Okay, this is the nonce. All right, this is the nonce. They're trying to find a number with a long string of leading zeros. For instance, if I just put in the letter A and then I put it through the SHA-256 hashing algorithm, it's going to give me a scramble of a bunch of numbers and letters. That's not what I want. I need to find something that gives me a bunch of zeros and then a 1 afterwards. I'm trying to look for something that I put in that gives me a bunch of zeros after. Now, if you put the letter B afterwards, it's not going to give you a slightly different output. It is going to give you a completely different output. It will be nothing like the output for letter A. If you put a 1 and then a 2 and then put those outputs next to each other, they will not be alike at all. Every time you put something into a SHA-256 hashing algorithm, it gives you something completely different. Even if those two things that you're putting in, your two inputs, might be very alike. You might put 0001 as your input and then 00001 as an input. Those two inputs will have no similarities. They will have no commonalities. Those two outputs will have no commonalities. So there's nearly an infinite amount of possible configurations that you would have to try to do to try to find the nonce. Bitcoin miners are doing billions of transactions per second. They are trying to find this number. A single Bitcoin miner can do billions of guesses in a single second. And it will still, most likely, never be able to mine the block. This is why people have entire warehouses that are just cooled so that way the computers can run at peak efficiency all day to try to guess a nonce. Every 10 minutes, someone does win. Every 10 minutes, approximately, someone does win the Bitcoin lottery. They win the nonce. They find the nonce. And they're rewarded for all their hard work and electricity by getting paid in Bitcoin. That's called the block reward. Every 10 minutes, you're rewarded the block reward. Currently, the block reward is 3.125 Bitcoins. That's cut in half every 4 years. That's for another video. But if you're able to guess the number correctly, then you're going to be able to be rewarded in some Bitcoins. This algorithm is what leads to Bitcoin being able to search for and find its nonce, its number only generated once. Now, difficulty adjustment. Why is this important? What if you had a super mega computer that could just guess trillions of numbers in a very short amount of time? Couldn't you just mine all of the Bitcoin in a day? No, that's not possible. Thanks to the difficulty adjustment algorithm. You got to think, Bitcoin was launched in 2009. Computers sucked back then compared to where they're at today. But even still, it always takes approximately 10 minutes to mine a Bitcoin, even if we use quantum computers or supercomputers or Apple Silicon or NVIDIA's newest chips, because of the difficulty adjustment. If the network finds that there is a huge amount of hash rate, if there is a huge amount of electricity being pumped into the network, if there are trillions of guesses being made per second, then the difficulty adjustment will make sure that it becomes even harder to find the target, to find the nonce. It will be even harder to do so. That balances the network. Now, let's say a bunch of computers end up shutting down, something goes wrong, it becomes very hard for miners to mine profitably. Whatever the reason is, people turn off their computers. If there's not a lot of hashing going on, if the hash rate is going down, then the difficulty will adjust downwards. It will become easier to mine Bitcoins. This will then incentivize people. Oh, okay, it's actually easier to mine again. I'm going to start mining for Bitcoin. The difficulty could drop so low that you could go back to mining Bitcoin on a laptop again. There was a time where you could mine Bitcoin on a simple laptop and you had a pretty good chance of winning. This is how Satoshi mined most of his coins at the beginning of the network. Granted, there were no competitors, so it was extremely easy. But during the early days of Bitcoin, probably like 2011, 2012, you were able to mine Bitcoin with just a laptop and you had a pretty good chance of winning. If you were to try to do that now, your odds of winning are probably much worse than winning the Powerball, which is insane. So you need very high powered equipment and a lot of it in order to win. But that's why people are rewarded for using all of their hashing power, all their electricity, all their upfront cost, all their time. They're rewarded with Bitcoin. This is also part of why Bitcoin gradually becomes more valuable, because people are putting in more electricity. They're putting in more money towards hardware. That's upfront cost. There are more businesses competing for Bitcoin. The demand is going up. Bitcoin mining is a very cutthroat business. There's more people getting into the space. All of these factors are driving forces in Bitcoin's appreciating price. They're not the only reason, but they are part of the reason. They are factors. So, Bitcoin difficulty adjustment. Overall, Bitcoin is going to continue to become harder to mine, but that's not going to deter people because the price of Bitcoin will make the journey of trying to mine Bitcoins all that much more worth it. Even if it seems like it's impossible, people will continue to mine because someone has to win the block reward. Someone has to win the Bitcoins. Someone has to be rewarded with the cryptocurrency. Someone has to eventually guess the nonce. How does it become more difficult? Basically, the nonce just gets smaller. So you need to find more zeros in the front. The more difficult it becomes, the more leading zeros you have to be able to find in the nonce. That's essentially how the target gets smaller every 2 weeks on the difficulty adjustment. It's based on a certain amount of blocks. I'm not sure how many. I'd have to look it up. Maybe I'll put it over this part of the video. I want to say 1600. But after a certain amount of blocks, it comes out to about 2 weeks. The difficulty will adjust. It'll either adjust up or down. And that's essentially how it works. That's the math of Bitcoin. That is the algorithm Bitcoin is using in order to determine a winner and who gets rewarded with Bitcoins. Someone wins every 10 minutes, but it's very hard when you have billion-dollar corporations mining for Bitcoin. Now, does this mean Bitcoin is controlled by miners? No. Bitcoin is a dichotomy. It's an ecosystem. People like me run nodes. Nodes are relatively cheap to run. They're pretty much free. If you have a laptop, you can run a node. The nodes enforce the rules of Bitcoin, and without the rules, the miners have nothing. They will just be wasting electricity. So miners have to follow the rules that are set by the nodes. Miners can also run their own nodes, and everyone has the ability to participate in the network, whether you have money for mining equipment or not. All that being said, we're going to talk more about Bitcoin mining in the future, and I believe the next video, we're going to go ahead and talk about, what should we talk about? Why don't you leave certain suggestions in the comments? I'm sure there won't be too many because this channel is very small right now, but it's going to get big. It's going to get big, and they're going to look back. Again, I'm going to end every video like this. I'm going to end every video where I'm like, dude, look at the price of Bitcoin right now. It's 59K. It's 59. It was 59. People are going to look back and be like, bro, where was this video when I was, when I was growing up? Why wasn't this recommended to me 10 years ago? You know what I mean? Absolutely insane. Bitcoin is a never-ending journey. I'll definitely have something for you guys tomorrow. But for now, this is what I'll leave you with. Bitcoin solves the math problem using SHA-256. And the difficulty adjustment makes it so no one can ever speed up the distributions of Bitcoin. Shout out to Jack Mallers. Bitcoin is literally stuck in time. It can only be released every 10 minutes. And that is because of the difficulty adjustment algorithm. Bitcoin is stuck in time. It is only released every 10 minutes. It doesn't matter how good your technology is. Whether you're in 2009 or 2029, it will always take 10 minutes to mine Bitcoin. And that is truly amazing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, that didn't fucking stop it. That's great.